this is going to be a fun talk. I even have a prop. Okay, but first I'm going to do what Brian Perry did. I have not yet figured out the whole podium thing. I will say that Linda Went and I had a discussion about it. That's all I'll say. Because I kind of wanted to bag the podium, but it's a nice podium. So what I'm going to do is stick it here so I can put my notes on it and do some wandering. Yes, it's a nice podium. It's beautiful.
It's a gift.
Yes, it's a gift from Michael Burke. He did a great job. It's beautiful, but I don't want to stand behind it because I... Marina's like, please stand behind it. This is great. Marina, if you want to take a second and move back, I am all about that.
I can.
Okay.
There we go. I'm zooming back out a little to give you more range, but I can't.
Yeah, she's going to be herself. Yes, I know. And I appreciate her doing that, and I welcome folks who are watching this online, and I apologize for the initial chaos. But this talk is kind of about that, so that's good. Okay, so this book is entitled How to Be a Stoic, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Living. Okay, a few months ago, Tom Kell came up to me, and he said, I want you to read this book because I think this is who we are. Okay, so now you know since day one, we've been, meeting as a church community for 6 years or so, and we frequently take a look at who we are. And so Tom, who was a very wise man, comes up and says, I think this is who we are. And so I thought, okay, great. For New Thought, we're interfaith, now we're Stoics. I said, and I thought, really? Because I had the impression that Stoics are people who never show emotion, that when they cut themselves, they don't cry. Like Mr. Spock. Remember Mr. Spock? I even heard that Gene Roddenberry modeled Mr. Spock on Stoicism. But it turns out that he was wrong. That is not who Stoics are. So I was going on vacation with my family, and I brought this book because it interested me. If Tom Kell said this is who we are, then I wanted to find out who I was. And I had a week to read it. So I get up to New Hampshire with my family, and my brother, who was also a very wise man, says, I've been studying Stoicism for months. Let me read that book. So that was a clue that this was a living philosophy that meant something to people that I respected. So I grabbed it back from my brother, who is younger than me, and I said, no, I'm going to read the book. I read it in a week, which if you know me, I typically don't read books in a week because I'm very busy and I read a page here and then I pick up another book and it's just sheer chaos. But I read this book and I found, and I've mentioned Stoicism a few times in my talks here and I've even talked about it some, but I found that this philosophy contains tools which improved my life right then. So I'm going to make a guarantee to you today. I'm going to tell you some cool things today that will improve your life by the time you get out to the parking lot. I mean, think about that. Yeah. No, it is severe because we are all about practical tools to make our lives better. And that is what Stoicism is about. It's about a philosophy that makes your life happier and more meaningful. And what the Stoics teach us is if you are thinking about a philosophy that does not make your life happier and more meaningful, bag it. Stick with what makes your life more meaningful. Now, if anybody has any comments to say, any wisdom, any thoughts, say it. Because this is an interactive kind of thing, so please. Okay, so I learned, brief bit of history, I have about 20 minutes. Stoicism was begun in about 300 BCE by a guy named Zeno. And the reason it's called Stoicism is because he used to hang out on his porch, Stoa, and talk to anybody who came by. That is the source of the word. It means porch. Stoics are people who hung around on a porch and learned wisdom. That's it. Okay, 300 BC. I also found what is way cool about this philosophy is that it has been integrated in major faith traditions. Do you remember Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning? Survivor of the Nazi death camps. He also originated the psychological theory of logotherapy. We've talked about that. What is logotherapy? Logotherapy teaches, the Cliff Notes version, that the way you are psychologically healthy is if you believe your life has meaning. Right? Viktor Frankl founded a lot of what he taught on Stoicism. It also has an impact on cognitive behavioral therapy. Aaron Beck, who's the author of Cognitive Therapy of Depression, wrote, "The philosophical origins of cognitive therapy can be traced back to the Stoic philosophers." This is amazing. So I'm going to tell you the Cliff Notes version of what I like about Stoicism, what works for me about this philosophy, what made my life better. But I will tell you that this is a year-long study, as Tom can attest. This is not something you pick up in a 20-minute talk. So we're going to talk about it on Wednesday. Get that segue? Cool. So if you want to talk more about Stoicism, you want to talk more about these principles, come join us on Wednesday. Okay, so some of the major Stoics have been Seneca, 4 BCE to 64 CE. Seneca, who was an advisor to Nero, one of the largest nut jobs ever created, but he brought those principles to his attempts to govern this crazy guy. So he applied those principles to do what he could in the face of chaos. Marcus Aurelius, Roman Caesar from 121 to 180, who wrote Meditations, another wonderful book. I have a copy. And Epictetus, who is quoted by the author here, Massimo Pigliucci. He relies on Epictetus in this book. Epictetus was a slave who was born in about 55 CE. Another cool thing I found out is Epictetus was not his name. How many people thought it was his name? Well, I was one. Epictetus was a slave. Nobody knows his name. The word Epictetus means acquired. Don't know the guy's name, but that's what we call him because he was a slave, but he worked for somebody who was very enlightened, so he could study Stoicism. This is what I like about Stoicism. It's practical, it is immediate, and it gives you tools that you can use right now. The other thing that is way cool about this philosophy is you can believe in God, you cannot be sure, or you cannot believe at all. It doesn't matter. The same principles apply. What they believed, what they taught, was that the universe operates according to reason. The universe is the result of causality. Things happen for a reason. They called it logos because they were Greek. Okay? But you can take that same thinking and apply it to God, the universe, whatever your thought of a universal power is, or you can just go back to what they call Einstein's God. You know that concept? Which is that the universe operates according to rational rules, and leave it at that. It is open to interpretation, it is open to growth, which is why 2,000 years later, it is still so present with us. Okay. So what do they do about emotions? If somebody comes and hits me in the head with a 2x4 and I don't cry, that's not the definition of Stoicism. That's probably the definition of being in a coma. Okay? But what they do is they take your emotions. You take your emotions, you become aware of what it is you're feeling, and then you redirect that emotion. You decide whether that emotion is based on something that is true, and you redirect it to your greater good. You become aware of why you are feeling what you're feeling. You look at your impressions, you look at your assumptions, and you decide how you are going to act based on how it is you are feeling and the events that have happened to you. It is a philosophy that gives you awareness, which is what we are all about, clarity, and choice. It is a philosophy that requires you continually to be aware and to realize that you have a choice. Okay, so let me ask you a question. What is a cause in your lives of suffering? Anybody? What makes you suffer?
Finances.
Finances? Okay. Finances, good, that's good. What else?
Illness.
Illness? Okay.
Mean people.
Mean people. This is great. Finances, illness, and mean people. Okay. What Stoicism teaches, and I think finances, illness, and mean people work into all of this, is that we need to focus on what it is that we can control. We need to put our effort and our thought and our focus on what it is we can control and disregard the rest. Now just think about that for a second. That sounds kind of pat, but how often do we not do that? Illness. What can we control about illness? We can't control how ill we can control how we take care of our bodies. So we focus on that. Finances. Can I control whether I become wealthy? No. I can control how I pick my job, how hard I work, where I put my efforts. That's what I can control. Mean people. Can I control them? No. I can control how I react to them. How much time do we spend worrying about things over which we have no control? This is how much time I spend worrying about things over which I have no control. When I apply these principles, my paradigm shifts immediately. I feel better immediately because I realize I have no control. He uses the example of a ship. Epictetus does. This book is great. He spends the whole time talking to Epictetus. You can see this guy wandering the streets of Rome with like Epictetus standing next to him. But he uses the example of a ship. I am taking a ship from point A to point B. I want to get from here to there. What is it that I can control? I can select a pilot who is a good pilot. I can select a ship that is made from good materials. I can supervise its construction. I can make sure that I leave at the time which is auspicious. What else can I control? Nothing. I can't control whether I'm going to get there. There may be a storm. The pilot I pick may get sick, and he may send his drunken brother. I mean, who knows? There are things that I cannot control. So what I focus on, bless you, what I focus on is what I can control. Let's fast forward that about 1900 years where we don't have to worry about helmsmen. Okay. You have a presentation at work. You have a critical boss. You have a demanding client. Who's been there? Yo.
You have.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, what is it that before listening to this talk you might worry about?
How they're going to react to what I say.
Yeah. How are they going to react? How is it going to go? What are they going to think? You know, am I going to get fired? Am I going to get promoted? What do you say?
Am I still going to have a job?
Yeah. Am I still going to have a job? Okay. How many of those things are in our control? That would be none of them. Okay, so in order to get ready for your presentation, what is the smartest thing to do? What is the smartest thing to focus on?
Your presentation.
Doing the best one you can.
Yes! Yes, getting ready for this talk. I would like, there are two possible outcomes. You all can walk out saying, my God, my life is transformed. Or you can walk out and you can say, I'm never getting that 20 minutes back. You know? I can't affect any of those. All I can do is affect how I prepare, what I choose to say, what I choose to read, getting, whatever, how much sleep I, you know, all sorts, whatever, how much sleep I get. That's what I can control. The rest of it I cannot. So Epictetus says, don't worry about it. You can't do anything about it. If there is something you can do to fix it, then fix it. If there's nothing you can do because it's out of your control, then let it go. Is that something doable? For me, it totally shifts the energy because I don't worry about it anymore. And the other thing it does for me is it gives me focus to know where to put my effort, where I can change, where I can have an impact. That is one huge tool that I have used and that I've taken from Stoicism. The other thing Stoicism teaches is that we are happiest when we are living lives of what they call virtue, which is a great word. We don't use that word too much anymore. Or if we do, we kind of use it in a very narrow context. But the philosophy teaches that we are creatures of reason, conscience, awareness, hope, and future seeing. We are different from other animals on the planet in that way. And we are happiest when we are living in integrity with who we are. We are happiest when we are living lives of character and lives of integrity. Don't you agree? Okay, now I was reading this book. I was looking for this book and I was saying, okay, now where can I find a quote that tells me why we're happiest living lives of integrity? And then I thought, you moron, it's self-evident. I mean, please, do I have to do a wiring diagram for that? No, because we feel it in our hearts. We know that we are happiest when we are living lives of integrity. The cool thing about Stoicism that I love is that it teaches you can do it no matter what is happening to you. No matter what is happening to you, you can still put a life of virtue and a life of character first. Okay, now this is where it gets a little semantic, so stick with me. Everything that happens to us in the material world is what they call an indifferent. It's an indifferent. Wealth is an indifferent. They call it a preferred indifferent. If I win the lottery tomorrow, Linda will be speaking. I'm just kidding. If I win the lottery tomorrow, that is what we call a preferred indifferent, right? If I lose all my money tomorrow, if I'm stricken with a catastrophe tomorrow, that is a dispreferred indifferent. But I still manage to live my life with character and integrity and virtue. Let me now use my teaching aid. Hang on. I love this job. Okay. This ball is the events of your life, right? Okay. It stays the same no matter what you do with it. In sports, we focus on the ball, and we do the same in life. We focus on the events, right? But what really matters is the skill with which you play the game. This is an indifferent. But what matters in my life, as in your life, as in all our lives, is how well we handle it, how creatively we handle it, how quickly we think. Yo! Yeah. It's the skill with which we play the game. And we spend so much time focusing on this. We spend so much time thinking, how is that job interview going to turn out? How is this sickness going to turn out? Will I be rich? Will I be healthy? Well, whatever. It's just an indifferent. What matters, preferred or dispreferred. What matters is the creativity, the virtue, the skill, the integrity we bring to how we handle this indifferent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Now what he does, thank you, Tori, for the
He has a
ball.
question, Melanie.
Yes.
It's interesting you brought out the tennis law, I teach tennis, and I came across something that I try to help my students.
Yeah.
And I didn't write this, but it goes, basically a successful call for reality manifestation involves two elements. A clear statement of belief or intent. They came to the lesson. They loved tennis, spoken and held in a positive way. Followed immediately by a total, complete release of the outcome into the hands of the expanding self.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Followed immediately by a release of the outcome into the hands of the expanding self with a big S.
Cool.
That's perfect. That's what we do. Thank you, Michael. That's perfect. We make our goal things we can control. My goal, Tori's a tennis player, Michael's a tennis player. Your goal should not be to win the match, because that is not within your power. You may be up against somebody who is better than you. It could be Roger Federer. Who knows? Well, that would be your lucky day. But anyway, your goal should be to go and play as well as you can, because that is within your control.
Yes.
And that is a goal you can meet or not meet on your own efforts, right? Thank you, Michael. That was excellent. You release the outcome because we can't control the outcome. Okay. So what he does is he teaches some tools. He gives a few tools, and I'm just going to share some with you because I think I'm running out of my time. The first tool is to examine your impressions. This is where our choice comes in. This is where our thinking comes in and our clarity comes in. Examine your impressions of what is happening to you in each moment. Let's say somebody comes up and insults you or hurts you or does something that negatively impacts you. He writes, and this is where you examine your impression, because you get to choose if you're going to be insulted or harmed or not. Epictetus writes, remember, it is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. It is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. You must believe you are being harmed. Examine your impressions. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. This is a game you play together. You have the choice to be harmed, insulted, or not. So examine your reactions and then exercise your choice. The other thing he teaches is the impermanence of everything. He calls this Western Buddhism. This is great. The impermanence of everything. And that is true. One of the disciplines that Stoics do, and I'm not going to talk about it here, is they recommend that you think on death. Or that you think on bad things that are going to happen. Because once you realize that that's going to happen, and it's going to happen, and you can take it, then everything is fine. They call it meditatio mori, or meditatio malorem. Because once you spin out the worst thing that can happen, and you say, okay, I can do that, then you are good to go. Fear paralyzes us when we think, I can't face that, I can't do that. There is little you cannot face if you think about it ahead of time and you are ready. Impermanence of everything. I was thinking about this the other day when I was walking my dog. My dog is 8 years old. It's probably not going to live longer than 12 or 13 or 14. But does that mean I enjoy her less now? It means no, I value her so much more now because I know she's not going to be here forever. He calls this the insanity of wondering why you don't have a fig in winter. You know, I have a fig in the summer. I want a fig in the winter. Well, what's wrong with you? They're not there in the winter. Everything has a season. Things and people. So when we know that they're going to go, we value them all the more, don't we? We remember that things are impermanent. The other thing he uses, which I love, is what he calls the reserve clause. This goes back to a lack of control. Okay, when I leave here, I'm going to go home. And I don't know if I'm going to make it, right? Because there may be something that I may get sick. There may be an accident. I don't know. All I can do is get in my car and intend to go home. But he says, put in the clause, God willing. That is the release, because we don't know if we're going to be able to do it or not. My brother, who's a Middle Eastern expert, every time I say, Al, I'll see you later, he goes, Inshallah, if God wills. And he's right. But that means you're not disappointed, because your expectation is that things may change, right? That means, yes, I'm going to go do this, but things may happen. You know that things...
Blame God for it too.
Well, no, we're not blaming God, but chance, yeah. Whatever you call God, you know, fate willing, chance willing, whatever. Yeah, seriously, no, don't go there. But you are not disappointed because you know it is in the nature of things to be variable, right? So put in the reserve clause. It's a good practice. He also recommends that we ask ourselves, how can I use virtue in this instance? How can I use it right now? As you go through your day in the next week, just think about it. Whatever experience you're in, how can I use these principles right now? How can I take this experience to help me grow and become more aware and be a better person? Because if you're like me, you spend so much of your time going through your day, kind of blah, 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 and you're just totally asleep. You told me something yesterday. Montana told me something great yesterday. She said, in the native tradition, you are either awake or you are asleep. You want to say that again?
Are you awake or are you asleep? That
Yeah.
means if you're paying attention, you're awake. If you're not, you're going to make really poor choices and you're going to react.
Yeah, and you need to consciously stay awake or else you're going to fall asleep again. It is something that you need to continue. I was making a joke with my sister this morning because as I was driving in my car, we decided I needed to do a talk on what our devices can teach you. Because I was driving my car and it's got a big light on that says maintenance required. And I thought, my God, that's so true of all of us. Maintenance required. And then in the morning I turn on my Bluetooth and it says, connected. I'm like, yes! Don't we all want to be? I'm just going to keep turning it on and off. Yes.
Melanie, look, it all comes down to one word.
What?
Relationship.
Relationship? Yeah.
Because do you have a relationship with yourself and your creator, your universe?
Yeah. You have to be awake to be in relationship. Yeah. Yeah, well, you're right, Montana. Thank you for that. That's what it comes down to. Pause. Next tool, then I'm going to stop. Pause and take a deep breath. Pause and take, whatever happens, pause and take a deep breath. Gives us time to examine our impressions, gives us time to connect, to keep that relationship strong, and to make a choice about how we are going to proceed. Doesn't it? There are more tools in this book. I'm going to have it for coffee after fellowship. You can take a look. They are wonderful ways to approach living your life in a conscious, awake, clear, and joyful way. So I think we may all be Stoics. All right, so let me close with a quote from Marcus Aurelius. He said, and it says man, but we'll say person. Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.